What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Big Apple Banter. It's just myself and Matty L tonight. And for those Knicks fans out there that have been wondering, where is the New York basketball content? Well, Matty L and I have cooked up a little Knicks season recap, I'd say, so far. Going to kind of be talking about the strides they've made from last year when it was an incredible season. I think we'd agree, Matty L, but ultimately fell to the Indiana Pacers in round 2 of the playoffs. Obviously, a lot of injuries kind of held them back, but this season has gone pretty much as well as anybody could have thought of. At the time of this recording, they're sitting at third in the conference, a couple games behind the Celtics, who actually, I think right now are getting their ass kicked by the Mavericks. So that number may change. Few games back at the Cavs, but pretty safely in the playoff picture. And really, Matt, the biggest thing from last year, this year, Leon Rose basically said, we have a team here, pedal to the metal, went all in, completed the Nova Knicks by bringing in McCall Bridges, sent Bojan Bogdanovic the other way, a ton of first round picks, got the wing defender they wanted, and then he broke up the Nova Knicks by trading Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle to the Wolves to get one of the most talented centers in NBA history, with Karl Anthony Towns coming in, and it has worked out brilliantly. So now that we're over about 50 games into the season, Matt, looking back on this trade on these trades, it's pretty safe to say Leon cooked here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I can't remember being this excited about a Knicks season in my life. I mean, you have to go back to like 2014, but yeah, I mean, I will say like McCall, had his struggles early at the beginning of the season. Like he looked like his shot was messed up and maybe he's getting a little exposed on defense, but he's really picked it up in the past few months, and we're looking good. I mean, the trade, I mean, included like four unprotected first round picks and a few other like pick swaps and protected picks. So it was a massive haul and a lot to give up and a big leap of faith from, Leon Rose. And I mean, it's paid off. And then talk about Cat. I feel like we absolutely robbed the Minnesota Timberwolves in that deal. Like Cat has been an all-star starter this year. Like he's just been absolutely phenomenal. Our offense has improved upon from last year where we were. Like I was looking at it, we're top three in the league in our true shooting percentage this year. Last year we were only in like the 20 to 22 range, and the offensive rating is just up from last year. And it's a really exciting time to be a Knicks fan.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when Tibbs first got here, defense was kind of his mantra. The Knicks were always an excellent defensive team in the top 5 in terms of opponents' points per game. This season has been a little bit of a flip-flop. The defense has actually struggled, whereas the offense, I believe, is second in terms of overall efficiency. But really, since December, I believe the Knicks went 12-2 in the month of December. Defense really picked up,
Correct.
and they're just an absolute wagon right now. Obviously, bringing in Karl Anthony Towns brings in an offensive center that I really don't think the Knicks have had since maybe a Kristaps Porzingis. Just his dynamic. I mean, he leads the Knicks in terms of 3-point percentage. He's averaging 24 points a game. The Knicks have not had a dynamic offensive player like this in a really long time. The pick and roll has been excellent. Obviously, Bridges has really picked it up. Anunoby's been a big piece, but we got to talk about Josh Hart. I mean, this guy is
Absolutely.
just the ultimate team player. Great personality. I freaking love this guy on the team. Probably the craziest Josh Hart stat that we just discovered. Obviously, this guy's a prolific rebounder of the basketball. He's only 6'4", and he's got 9.7 rebounds per game. But the crazy part about this, amongst guards, Josh Hart is number 1 in the NBA with rebounds with 483. The next closest guard is Josh Giddey with 348. So Josh Hart has over 100 rebounds more than the second place guy in Josh Giddey. And he started every game this year for the Knicks. He's averaging over 14 points. Like, as great as Brunson, McCall, and all and Cat and all these stars are, Josh Hart has just been the glue to this team in the locker room, on the floor, whatever it is. He's the type of player that every playoff team looks for. And I don't know if you have anything to add, Matt, but he's
Yeah.
phenomenal this year.
No, dude, Josh Hart is awesome. Like he's also another stat. He's the second leading offensive rebounding guard in the entire NBA. which is insane. Brother is a certified dog, so we're really lucky to have him on our team. I mean, God, the guy just fires me up every game. Like there's like nothing negative I have to say about that guy.
Yeah, and obviously rebounds are great, but it's leading to points. I mean, the Knicks
Hmm.
in the top quarter of the league in offensive rebounding percentage, so the second chance points are coming. If the shots aren't falling, you got Josh Hart crashing the boards. That can really change the complexion of a game. They're top 8 in the league in second chance points per game, with 15 per game. So just really, that's kind of why the offensive efficiency is kind of through the roof because obviously a guy like Brunson can drop 40 any night of the week. We've seen Cat do it. Even Anunoby and Bridges, who aren't like, those high octane upper echelon offensive players, can drop a lot of points. But it seems like when one player is off, another guy is able to step up and really take control. I did mention the defense for the Knicks struggled in the beginning of the season, but currently they are sitting at 14th in the NBA in terms of defensive rating. So some work to do there. Obviously, Mikal Bridges was kind of brought here to be that wing defender. Maybe wasn't all that at first, but he's really kind of turned it around both offensively and defensively. Matt, the one thing I worry about with the Knicks, the trade deadline didn't really do too much, but if we look at the minutes played, the Knicks have
Hmm.
three starters who are in the top 10 in terms of minutes played. And there was a stretch, I think it was in January somewhere, where they were kind of win loss, win loss. And I remember after one game, Cat was kind of like, "Man, I'm exhausted." Like I think it was an overtime game with the Bulls or something. Like he was exhausted. So how much does that worry you? I guess moving forward, and do you think the bench needs to get more involved?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the bench should get a little bit more involved. I was disappointed to see the lack of moves for maybe like a depth player on this trade deadline. I do think it signifies one thing that the Knicks have a lot of faith in Mitchell Robinson coming back this year. I saw reports put him at like an early February to mid-February return, which we desperately need some extra help for Cat. I mean between him, Precious, and now we just lost Jerica Sims. Like we were really lacking there, and it'd be a huge pickup to have. And you saw it last year. Like I mean, there's a reason that I mean, not everybody's built to play in Tibbs' system. Like Brunson hurt at the end of last year, OG hurt in the playoffs. Like it does take a toll on your body, and when you have three guys in the top 10 in minutes per game, it does really worry you. I don't know. This team, I just have a feeling that this team could really be our year, and that with the right combination of players, and I would absolutely hate to see the reason that we finally, or the reason that we don't finally get that elusive NBA championship, just because our guys just crap out at the end of the year from being overworked. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to monitor. I think I would say the backcourt is probably more solidified. Obviously, Duke McBride, got a well-deserved contract last
Oh yeah,
offseason,
absolutely.
offseason before. He's been a little hot and cold this year, but he's definitely put in some good minutes. Brunson, I think, is probably the Knicks' best player, but he's not in that top 10 in terms of minutes played. It's Bridges, Anunoby, and Hart. So I think the backcourt, you have him, you have Campaign, who's been a little hot and cold, and a guy that I really like is Tyler Kolek. This guy, I think, Brunson and the boys have their own podcast, and they were joking around with him. Kolek played like a G League game, had like a 30+ point game, and then dropped like 7 assists in that same day playing for the actual New York Knicks. So
Yeah, yeah.
just
I actually over last March Madness tournament, my Florida Gators were supposed to go up against his I don't know what Marquette's mascot is, against Marquette, and so I was scouting at like who their guys, and Tyler Kolek was the first guy that popped up, and when I turned on his highlights, like his ability to pass the ball and like get his teammates involved was just outstanding. And I think he's done like a good job of bringing that playmaking and shot creating ability to I mean his limited time with like in the Knicks rotation. But I think it's something to definitely be looking forward to. And I hope eventually, once he gets more minutes under his hand, like he can eventually take a larger role into the rotation and eventually be a solid backup to like for the Knicks for the future.
Yeah, yeah. The back court is kind of set. The front court is where I think the worries begin. And we were going to talk about it in another episode, but I just think since the trade deadline ended today, I saw it on an episode of ESPN, Brian Windhorst, who is a very well-respected reporter. He basically said that the biggest trade acquisition for the Knicks is getting Mitchell Robinson back. Now, Mitchell Robinson is not going to dazzle you with his point scoring. He's not going to make incredible plays, but he provides valuable minutes, especially defensively and rebounding. Has not played this year. I think a couple of years ago he was a little bit slimmer and was maybe more talented offensively, but I think right now, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the Knicks offensively don't really need a whole lot of help. I think they need to continue to improve defensively. You look at a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, and part of the reason they're first in the NBA, I think, right now is because they're atop the league in terms of offensive rating. I mean, they're sixth in offensive rating and they're number one in defensive rating. So if the Knicks can kind of find more of a balance, I think that would be very critical for them. And Karl Anthony Towns, as great of a player he is, he's made some defensive plays, but he can get exposed at times. His feet aren't that great inside of the paint. Obviously, an incredibly talented shooter and whatnot, but inside the paint, I think the Knicks need more of a physical presence. And actually, Matt, we were talking before, and you really like this guy, Ariel Hockporty, is kind of a fun story. You have a little tidbit on him, so
Yeah, so he's been emerging the last few games. I saw this stat on Twitter when guarding Scotty Barnes the other night. Laporte held him to 1 of 9 from field goal from the field and 0 of 2 from three. And that was on holding him to 1 turnover on 0 assists. So the guy, I mean, he's emerging. He's always a German-born player. I didn't know too much about him, to be honest, before this season, but he's carving out a nice little role for himself. And it's just hard not to be excited about his potential role in this team, especially after getting rid of Jericho Sims and waiting on Mitchell Robinson to come back. Like we are missing that defensive presence from Mitch. I mean, his shot blocking abilities, defensive rebounding ability. Like I think Haporti has a chance to make a real impact in this stretch with our lack of depth at center.
yeah. I mean, dumping Jericho Sims, I think, was mainly a salary dump, not a really big trade. I think nobody really expected the Knicks to do anything huge. I think they kind of have all the star power they need. But I've heard it from a bunch of different reporters, but the best way to improve as an organization is internally. So getting a guy back like Mitch could be huge. But real quickly, Jericho Sims did bring a return, DeLon Wright, and some cash considerations. Now, DeLon Wright is not anything crazy as a player, kind of another depth wing who I think could really make an impact, especially OG Anunoby's out right now. It seems like kind of a minor foot sprain is what we've heard from Tibbs. Not a ton of detail there, but
Yeah, I
obviously
saw it was like a day-to-day situation. So, I
yeah,
mean, hopefully he's back ASAP.
yeah.
But
But obviously Anunoby's kind of been hurt out of the lineup the past couple of years. I think the coolest thing about OG is probably like the overall plus minus he has when he's on the court. I think what was it last January when the Knicks went on that heater, he was like I think he was like the best in terms of a team debuting with the team. He was like the number one overall plus minus in first 5 games with the team or something like that.
yeah, it was insane. Like he just adds that like element, like defensive element and being able to stretch the court. Like it's just he's vital to the success of this team, and that's why I mean we struggled in the playoffs last year when he went down. Like we just weren't the same. Like the team needs him desperately.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, bringing in a guy like DeLon Wright probably, may not be an every night type of player, but a nice depth guy to have with a guy like OG Anunoby, who got hurt multiple times last year. Obviously, the hamstring issue. I remember game seven against the Pacers. It was so painful to watch him on the court. Like this guy could barely move, he could barely shoot. So I think that's an important player to have. But Matty, looking forward, I mean, we said it before, the Knicks are third in the conference right now. And if we look at the Eastern Conference, I mean, outside of the top couple teams, a lot of the top teams have really underperformed. I think it's pretty safe to say the Western Conference has more talent, but below the Knicks, we have the Pacers, who have, in my opinion, been pretty disappointing this year. Halliburton really hasn't taken much of a step. I mean, Pascal Siakam's been a nice player for them, but that's not a team that I'm super intimidated by. And then we have the you have the Bucks, who are probably the most intimidating team with Giannis and Dame.
They just banished Chris Middleton to the DC though. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll get into some bigger trades that have happened and kind of how they impacted. Obviously, the Miami Heat just lost Jimmy Butler, so
yeah,
what was
it's
once the
kind of
team that
crazy.
was the Knicks' kryptonite is no longer. And then you have the Pistons, you have the Magic, who have really cooled off. The
No
Hawks and
one
the
really
Bulls.
scares me. That's the thing.
like
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 this year, like that's why it's such a promising outlook. I mean, the Cavs are, like they're having an insane season, but like I don't know. It's still the Cavs. Like I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I
Am
mean,
I like truly? I'm looking at this as a three-team race. I'm looking at it as the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Knicks. The Bucks are obviously like the Bucks' reliance is on two players, which I think the Cavs, Celtics, and Knicks have such deep rotation, such like their starting lineup is so well balanced. With the Cavs, they have a lot. They like the fact that they have an elite point guard in Donovan Mitchell with a lot of height in Jared Allen and Evan
mhm.
Mobley. Darius Garland is having an incredible year. Like that's a starting five that is intimidating. And obviously the Celtics,
Yeah.
they win the championship last year. They kind of took off right there. And then it's the Knicks, right? The Pacers, I don't see anything really from the Pacers that freaks me out. And it's the Bucks. So looking forward to the Knicks right now, they would be playing the Miami Heat in the playoffs, who just lost Jimmy Butler. Like the Western Conference is so much more competitive. I mean, the Oklahoma City
Yeah.
Thunder are at 40-9 right now. They're a wagon, obviously. Shea
hmm
is doing his thing. You got the Grizzlies, who have really bounced back. The Rockets, the Nuggets. These are all teams that are legit, and I think they belong at the top of the league. I mean, if we look at the league standings really quickly, you have one, two, three, four. You have like seven Western Conference teams in the top 12. Like that's just how dominating. And obviously the Thunder and Cavs both have over 40 wins. So, I mean, I guess Matt, looking forward, like like in terms of the Eastern Conference and other and maybe even the Western Conference, like what teams are we most scared of moving forward and pose the biggest threat?
I mean, I would say obviously like OKC definitely is a concerning team. Like I feel like they're pretty deep and I mean they're young and they can run the floor with us. I'm not that scared of the Grizzlies. I know they're pretty hot right now, but honestly a team that is low key scary, even I mean they're still third in the Western Conference is the Houston Rockets. They definitely worry me. I'm curious to see how this Luka situation plays out with the Lakers too, and how this impacts them moving forward. Well, we saw that they just traded for that guy Mark Williams, who's a pretty impressive young guy, young center.
Yeah.
Um, but it's gonna be hard to gel like straight away. I mean, Luka's missed half the year too, so the Lakers are a weird one. I mean, there's quite frankly way more intimidating competition coming out of the Western Conference, just like you said. So, but again, like I really feel like this could be the next year. It's a matter of if we're healthy going into the final stretch of the playoffs this year. I think if we could push us over the hump, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like there's not too much to talk about because they've just been like consistently good. Like there haven't been
exactly.
too many issues. Obviously, every team has its off night, but it's like right when it seems like the Knicks are kind of fading, they kind of come back. So personally, these past couple of weeks, being a sports reporter must be like the craziest. fucking job in the world right
Yeah,
now with
no kidding.
with all of what is going on. So I guess like looking at some of these trades, like why do you think Luka Doncic was like? What do you think the thought process was behind that? Like,
I mean, I've been trying to figure this out for like the past few days. I was out at the bar when I found out about this trade, and I literally thought I was hallucinating when that came across my phone. My roommate's a Lakers fan. He was going ballistic. So I mean, it for the life of me, I can't figure it out. I mean, the Mavs are essentially selling their entire franchise and future on Anthony Davis, who, I mean, I know Luka wasn't healthy this year. I mean, Ant hasn't been out. I mean, Ant's a phenomenal player. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, and he brings the defensive aspect that they've been looking for and somewhat lacking with Luka. But I mean, I believe he's 33 years old, or maybe he's 32, turning 33. I
yeah,
mean, he's still like sort of youthful, but like he's getting up there.
yeah.
And a big man, I mean, they go down earlier than like the smaller guys just because their bodies wear down. So in terms of a futuristic trade for the Mavericks, I simply have no idea. The biggest part that I don't understand about this trade is how nobody in the organization other than the GM
Yeah,
like
that's
didn't know about
crazy.
it. Like Jason Kidd had no fucking idea that this is going down. Like I don't know how that happens. Like how do you get that through? I read something that the ownership like was found out just as the trade was going through that like they weren't really all over it, and Jason Kidd had no clue until it was already done. So
Yeah.
I think it speaks to the dysfunctional front office, and quite frankly, if Mark Cuban was still a majority stakeholder in the Dallas Mavericks, I don't think there's a chance in hell that that trade goes through.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I actually there was a picture on Instagram of Mark Cuban saying, "I would leave my wife before I let the Mavericks
yeah,
let Luca walk."
that's
I
funny.
the way I see it is you look at a guy like Zion Williamson, who's kind of, I mean, it's still hardly comparable, but like Zion, very out of shape, kind of been banged up a little bit, put on a lot of
Hmm.
weight, a lot of concern, ultra talented player, but like Luca is he's a tier
He's
two
simply
above him.
no, he's simply one of the best scorers like
Like this is a
we've
top
ever
three player
seen.
in the
Like,
NBA. And I get it, he's heavy and they were scared of it, like he's 270 pounds. But I saw another clip of a guy like when this guy's putting up 30 points a game, 10 assists, 15 rebounds to like it doesn't matter how heavy he is, you know.
yeah,
The
no,
one
I
thing,
know, I
yeah,
agree.
the
Continue.
one another thing I'll say is another Brian Windhorst bit. Last year in the finals, Luca got a lot of slack for the defense he played against the Celtics. I believe it was game
Mhm.
three. Luca fouled out with I think 5 minutes left of the game, and just his attitude wasn't really there. Like a lot of like palms up, like what's going on with the refs and whatnot. So, you know, the Mavs GM, I guess, attributed some of it to that. And I've seen a lot that the Mavs were scared to sign him to a super max. But you're now giving LeBron James, Luka
Yeah,
Doncic, and the trade they just made for Mark Williams, like I didn't really
I
know who this guy was. He's averaging 16 points a game. He's a young guy. They get
yeah,
Max Christie, who's also been playing pretty well. Or did Max Christie go? They got another big who's been playing well. So
yeah.
the Lakers now, you know, they win the title back in 2020, but you got LeBron, you got Luca. They have some nice depth. They lose a
No,
lot
yeah,
of guys, but like,
yeah, I agree. The one thing the Lakers in that Mark Williams trade, they got rid of a guy, Dalton Connect. He's a rookie. I haven't really seen anything like it. Like he's been playing good ball, and Dalton Connect torched the Florida Gators last year when we played him. So I'm familiar with this guy's game, and I thought he was a good player. So it's kind of a head scratcher seeing him get shipped off. But I guess he was their biggest trade piece that they had. They're
yeah,
willing to trade,
sell
and
high on
they
a guy on a rookie
desperately needed a
contract.
big man. So I
Yeah.
guess I get it, but still a little bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler trade was kind of expected, I think, just
Hmm.
almost like a team cancer on the Heat. They send him, it was a huge five-team trade, but the biggest part was Butler going to the Warriors. I guess Steph and company, they're currently at 500. They're 25 and 25. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's not like they're a lock for the playoffs. I
Hmm.
mean, you have Steph, you have Draymond Green. They lose Andrew Wiggins. Another interesting trade, but definitely like if we're looking at these trades and how they impact the Knicks, this I would say this trade definitely. I think the Heat have realized their window is closed, so this is definitely good for the Knicks. I would say the Bucks get rid of Chris Middleton. They do bring in Kyle Kuzma, who I think at this point in his career, Chris Middleton is older, maybe not as effective. Kyle Kuzma kind of provides a younger spark for them, but I mean, Matt, if we're looking at realistic expectations for the rest of the year, obviously the Knicks make the semifinals last year, kind of get injured out. Realistically, like if you could draw up what you think the playoffs will be like, what would you say happens?
Are we talking in terms of like the standings and like who we faced, or are we
All
like
right, so let's look at this. Let's look at the conference standings right now. So
okay,
let's say they play the Heat round one, who are the six
yeah,
seed. Let's just go. Let's do matchup by matchup, real
okay,
briefly. So the Cavs, I would probably take. God, I mean, I feel like I would trust the Magic over the Pistons.
oh yeah. I mean,
So
I think the Cavs are coming out around one. No questions, no questions
yeah,
asked. Honestly, the Celtics too. So regardless of the plan, which I'm personally not a fan of the plan at all. I think those two clear. So then let's say, if the season were to end today, if we were to play the Miami Heat, I mean, I'd be confident. I mean, like they lost like their best playoff performer like since LeBron and D Wade and Bosh and all them. So like I'm just not like they don't scare me. I would argue that someone like Giannis, who is just a freak. I mean, he's a Greek freak. Someone like that, like someone like with someone with a guy that could just take us on would be probably more frightening. But yeah, I'm not too worried about the Heat. What do you
yeah,
think?
yeah. Yeah. We talked about it. Like the Eastern Conference really is.
A
It's a
three-headed
complete.
race.
The Sixers have been a complete failure this year. Paul George has been terrible. Embiid has pulled the I don't want to play
God, I hate that
bullshit.
dude. I hate him so much.
And there were so many Knicks fans who were like, "We should bring in this guy." Like this guy doesn't play. He doesn't play. He he's like Tyrese Maxey was saying he's late to meetings. He doesn't he's not a
He's a
team
lazy
guy.
bum, bro. Like,
Like talented player, but just not around. So I guess final question to kind of wrap it up. How far would the Knicks have to go in the playoffs for you to say this is a successful season for them?
at the bare minimum, Eastern Conference Finals. And
Really?
like, I mean, yeah, I mean, we made it to the semis last year and we fell short. Like, with this roster, the way it's configured, like, there is no reason. I understand we're gonna have to face either Boston or Cleveland in the most likely in the second round of or in the semifinals or the Eastern Conference semifinals. But like I don't see a way that you can consider this season a success with the way that the last season ended. If everyone were to be healthy, anything less than an Eastern Conference Finals appearance would just be outright disappointing. And I outright say anything less than a trip to the finals, like I think would leave most Knicks fans disappointed. Not gonna be easy. I mean, there's two juggernaut. Like the top of the East is like the East as a whole is weak, but the top of the East is it's a bunch of juggernauts. So like getting through is not gonna be easy. But I'm kind of finals or bust this year. That's kind of how I feel.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, a team that hasn't won a championship since 1973 is like all of this waiting and it finally seems like things are coming together.
Can you imagine
Leon Rose
third?
bet on these big decisions and they've worked out. And I mean, the Knicks aren't perfect. They need to improve their defense. I think the offense has kind of written itself. How
Yeah.
talented they are. I worry about the starters being kind of driven into the ground. I really hope as the regular season wears down, Tibbs kind of starts, once the Knicks kind of solidify their playoff seeding, I really hope that the starters kind of get some rest because like that's
Hmm.
kind of like the Knicks last year, a healthy Knicks team would have beat that Pacers team and would not have gotten
Absolutely.
swept by the Celtics. Like the Pacers
Not
were
a chance.
embarrassing against the Celtics. Like the Pacers found ways to lose games. And listen, I think Boston was by far the best team in the NBA last year. You can call their championship run maybe easier just because of the other teams. Like the Pacers weren't great. The Mavs kind of went on a Cinderella run, whatever. the Knicks would have given that team a run for their money, and it would have been fun to watch. So I think the biggest thing we kind of talked about it, the health for the Knicks this year needs to stay. But it's a fun year to be a Knicks fan, and these fans, you know, yourself and myself included, deserve something. I mean, any New York team can win, but if the Knicks would win, I think the city would go up in flames. So
Literally burned down. Yeah.
definitely high expectations moving forward. As the season keeps going, if any more news comes out, obviously when Mitch comes back and OG comes back, we'll kind of evaluate the team from there. But it's been a great year so far, and hopefully they can keep it going. So we'll catch you guys in the next one. But thanks for tuning in.